was a good friend.
And let's listen to Pavarotti. Put on Pavarotti.
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, and I am here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. As a disclaimer, this channel is for entertainment purposes. These are my opinions, and I'm not here to slander anyone. So, I will provide information. The information I provide, I'll be giving you my opinion on. My opinions are mine and mine alone. In fact, in this episode, I'm not going to even provide any information. I just want to have a brief discussion about this case. And in the last few videos, I have put out a scenario that a lot of people don't agree with, and I can appreciate that. And that was the speculation that the King Road house could have in fact been a type of safe house. And some of the main disagreements that I noticed were the fact that, well, if this was a safe house, it was the most unsafe house in history, because they wouldn't have a safe house and have active, drug activities going on at it. There's always partying people over there. This is just no way it could be a safe house. And I can appreciate all those arguments. And that's why I tried to get across in the video where I used the actual words out of the WITSEC program to describe some of the ways in which these things are implemented. And one of those ways were alternative measures. And in alternative measures, you're not necessarily in a safe house in the sense to where, this is a designated area, like I mentioned in the past, like for like battered women. They'll take, women that have been, they're in a terrible relationship, they're being abused, and their other party are likely to be looking for these women to continue to abuse them. So they put them in a type of safe house that nobody knows about, and they're not allowed any contact, and they're heavily monitored. I mean, this is a different scenario that I'm discussing here. You see, in this case, if I am correct, what would happen in an alternative measure situation is you have people that are involved with the criminal underworld and law enforcement. They got that dual role. Law enforcement's trying to take them down. They're using these people to do it. Well, because these people have concerns about their families, specifically in this case, it would be about their children. Well, law enforcement has to take extra measures to ensure that they feel good about it, and take measures, as precautionary measures just to make sure that they are safe. And more than likely in scenarios like this, they're not going to go overboard, because they don't really believe that they're in that much danger. Okay, these are just precautionary measures just to check some boxes to make sure everybody feels better about it. But if you have a scenario where you have individuals whose family members are involved in something like this, and then you have the circumstances of all three of their children are going to a specific college. And in my opinion, if this is a safe house, everybody in that house was in there for alternative measures, for protective reasons, for one reason or another. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. But what they would do is when I say they, I mean law enforcement. Right? And in this case, we would be talking specifically on the higher level, the feds, different parts of the federal law enforcement. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to go to the local people. Okay? So the youngsters go to the college in that town. They're wanting to implement some alternative measures. Well, the feds aren't going to implore their resources to go and implement these alternative measures. They're going to go to the local people. And when I say the local people, that means local law enforcement and local city leaders, right? In cases like we're discussing here, that would include the prosecutor, may even include the judges. It would certainly include the administration of the university, because the students go to the university. And if I'm not mistaken, they, did live at the university in some type of university housing, whether it be an official, sorority house or or whether it was just, dorms. So they would go to the administration of the university, and then they would all have a plan to put in place. And again, think about it. They're doing these as precautionary measures. They probably don't believe anything's really going to happen. So the university has a house that this isn't the first time things like this happen. These things happen quite often. I'm sure in the past, the university has a house that they've used for probably similar circumstances. So they have this designated house. Okay, no problem. We'll have everybody move into this house for, just for a semester. And that way we can implore some alternative measures. We can have our local PD guys go by there periodically just to check on them. And their roles, the local PD guys, is not going to be to go and be 24-hour surveillance security guards. No, they implore their alternative measures. They probably have, a set time. You need to go by at least every few days and do a house check, do a drive-by. Just keep your eye on things. Now, the students themselves probably don't think they're in danger. These victims in this crime didn't think they were in real danger. Or they may have thought they were in danger, but not really. You know what I mean? It's hard for them to really grasp the danger that they were in. So they're going to continue on with life as usual. And when the local PD guys go by and check the house, they're not going by to check the house and make sure there's no college students there. That's not who they're protecting them from. They're protecting them from people in the criminal underworld, not from other college students, coming over to have a few beers or do some little party drugs. So they're probably even annoyed that they have to go by and do it and take time out of their busy schedules to do that. But in the end, when something like what happened, then everybody has to take a step back because all of the alternative measures that were implored failed. You know what I mean? So now we've got the university. Let's look at things from all their different perspectives if what I'm saying is correct. You have the university who has a big issue. They just had 4 of their students unalived in a house just outside of campus. Okay, they're in the middle of buying the University of Phoenix, and they know something like this is going to greatly impact their enrollment and therefore their finances. And the entire town relies on the university for its finances. So they got a big problem right off the bat. Second problem they have is law enforcement and the university already knows, because if they had implored alternative measures to try to keep these youngsters safe, and then this happens, they knew before anybody ever even arrived on the scene to start investigating. Oh goodness, we know what happened. This is what we were supposed to be protecting them from. So now they've got a huge problem. Well, 4 of their students were unalive due to retaliation in the criminal underworld. Now that gets out, enrollment drops to a factor to where it really does impact the town financially and the university financially, and may even block their purchase into that University of Phoenix. So you have to take that into consideration from the university perspective. Some frat boys did it. They would have chomped at the bits to arrest a couple of frat boys that did it and put the thing to bed, I assure you, instead of going the route that they've had to go, and now it's been in the world news, now for almost 2 years. Imagine if the truth got out at the very beginning of what this was all about, how much media coverage would they get, and how many students would not have returned to that university or enrolled in the first place. Really think about it. But then you have to think about the responsibility that falls on all of the local officials, prosecution, judges, anybody that set up this alternative measure. And then you've got the police chief, who was supposed to be making sure that the alternative measures were done. And then you've got the PD guys who were actually doing the alternative measures, going by and checking on the house. See, everybody failed at this point. Everybody is responsible at this point. And then you've got the feds who worked it out with the local guys to make sure this didn't happen. Well, now they're on the line because it's their involvement using the informants to try to take down the criminal underworld that made this happen. So you've got all of these people that are involved in this that failed. So my whole point to this, and by the way, if this was a safe house of sorts that was used for alternative measures, then that means all of the residents in the house were there for a specific reason. So when we look at Dylan and Bethany, what do we really know about them? We know that one of them's a freshman and they weren't even supposed to be living in off-campus housing based on that, right? Or at least that's what I've heard. And we know that they both have powerful families in the area, is what Steve G has said. So when they say they have powerful families, we know that at least both of them have family members that are attorneys. So what do we really know about them? Have they been involved, have their families that are attorneys been involved in, either prosecuting or defending, or who knows what they could have been involved in that could have potentially put their family members at risk? And that's why Dylan and Bethany were in that house as an alternative measure. We don't know. But the more that I look at this thing, the more it tells me that, yeah, they were in that place for a specific reason, and the threat level to everybody that was involved just wasn't high enough for them to do a thorough job in implementing those alternative measures. So they just went through the motions. Then when this thing happened, everybody was puckered up and went, oh no, we all failed. So I absolutely think that when they found out that, a college student and his buddy from a bordering college just happened to be in the neighborhood and parked near the house for a few minutes doing something else, in their minds they went, well, this is our only chance. Maybe he did do it. He was there. Let's just use that and let's just go after him, and then maybe all the other stuff will go away if we just focus in on this guy. And who knows, maybe he did it. That's what I believe we're dealing with here in the Idaho 4 case. At this point, everything leads me to believe that. So now I'm looking at, really everything I look at backs up what I've already said, but I'm looking at other ways to corroborate it even further. And one thing that I can't get out of my mind, and that's why I'm going to have to go through and sit there and look at this Linda Lane footage for hours and hours and hours to verify what I'm thinking. So if you've got this vehicle, let's just look at it from, take everything I've said out and we'll look at it strictly from, law enforcement's perspective. I don't believe it's really law enforcement's perspective anymore. Let's look at it from the outside looking in, okay, what law enforcement has said. You've got this car that pulls into the neighborhood roughly at 3:28, circles the house 3 times, drives off roughly at 3:57. But then at 4 a.m., we got a DoorDash driver that pulls into the neighborhood and pulls into the house to deliver the DoorDash. Now, I can assure you the DoorDash is going to be used as a witness in this case. So that means the DoorDash driver was sitting in the driveway from 4 a.m. until at least 4:07. And I'll explain why here in just a minute. And everybody in the YouTube world knows it because that information's been sent to them. And I've brought this up in the past. So let's look at it just from a strictly common sense point of view. If this vehicle circled the house 3 times, pulls out of the neighborhood at 3:57, then a DoorDash driver pulls in and pulls into the driveway. And then this vehicle enters the neighborhood for a 4th time at 4:04. Well, he had been scoping out the house, right, for 3 passes between 3:28 and 3:57. Okay, he's got a decent idea. Okay, nobody else has showed up to the house. I don't know how many's in there. There's several cars out front. There could be a lot in there, but maybe they're all asleep. So obviously when he pulls back through the neighborhood at 4:04, he's thinking maybe they're all asleep. I'll get in there and surprise attack. But now as he pulls in at 4:04, there's a new car in the driveway that wasn't there when he pulled out a minute ago. It's the DoorDash driver. So he stops, looks at the DoorDash driver and goes, oh crap. Now He doesn't. How does he even know? DoorDash drivers don't put DoorDash on the side of their car, so how does he know it's a DoorDash driver? So he looks at the car and goes, "Oh crap! Now there's somebody else just showed up and they're here." Now I know what you're thinking. He could have pulled around, then when the DoorDash driver left, then gone in. But then he would know it was a DoorDash driver, right? And they just delivered food to the house. So that means that the residents are now awake. So that puts a random individual sitting there now knowing everybody in the house is possibly awake. Doesn't know how many people are in the house, but he's going to go in there and do this anyways. Come on, folks. We know that that is idiotic. So anybody that believes that Bryan Kohberger is a random SA guy that goes in and SKs people, they're freaking idiots at this point. Yeah, I said it. They're idiots. But what does all of this actually tell me? Well, it tells me the same thing that I told you in my 5-part series of how they got to Kohberger. Now I got to sit here and I have to look at hours of Linda Lane footage, though, just to verify that every little thing that I said is correct with what reality truly is. But please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. Until the next time, I just want to let you know what I'm working on. Pavarotti is out.